While the Bond Car Company was more associated with its iconic space-age-looking Bug three-wheeler and highly economic microcar, the firm did also endeavour to step away from its budget machine roots by way of creating its own sports car, the Triumph-based Bond Equipe. This unusual four-wheeled venture for the firm attempted to stake a claim in the rising trend for traditional drop-top British sports cars that were rapidly emerging during the 1960s, but today stands as something of a rarity and an enigma in the wider UK heritage motoring scene. The Bond firm had originally been established in 1922 as Sharps Commercials, a Preston-based retail motor trading company which rose to prominence during 1949 when it launched the Bond minicar, the brainchild of Lawrence Lorry Bond. The Bond minicar was a three-wheeled economy machine that was built to match the post-war frugality of the British motoring scene, taking its place next to the likes of the Reliant Regal as a car tailored squarely for low-income households in a time of steel and fuel rationing, and, like the Reliant, could be driven on a cheaper motorbike license. The creation of the Bond minicar was something of a modest success for the firm, resulting, between the launch of the first prototype in 1948 and the end of its production run in 1966, a total of 26,500 units that gave Sharps a wide margin of profitability by the turn of the 1960s. Although the company's core operations was a long way removed from the day-to-day business of building microcars, Sharps Commercials and its parent company, the Loxhams and Bradshaw Industrial Conglomerate, remained very much in charge of their production until 1964, when Lorry Bond retitled the firm to Bond Cars Limited in order to fully exploit their association with the popular microcar. The renaming of the company to Bond Cars was to coincide with its rapid drive into creating a vast range of models that would be funded by the profits made from microcar sales, and in light of emerging trends in the motor industry, the company management opted to take a bold new step away from economic three-wheelers and instead focus on the creation of a four-wheel drop-top sports roadster. By the turn of the new decade, the British sports car was coming into vogue as the must-have road-going accessory. Models such as the Triumph TR Series, the MGB and the Midget, and the Austin Healey Sprite, presenting buyers with a nippy drop-top roadster that was relatively inexpensive, a budget alternative to dedicated European sports cars like the Jaguar E-Type and the Aston Martin DB5. Eager to join this market, during mid-1962, Bond opened up discussions with the Standard Triumph Company as to creating another possible sports car model that would sit alongside the Triumph TR4 on the sports car scene, but will be essentially a specialist variant of the company's own Mark II Triumph Vitesse, sharing the same chassis, windscreen assembly, running gear and doors. The car would also adopt the 1.1-litre standard SC straight-four engine from the Triumph Spitfire, the suspension unit also being of a Triumph origin, and was independent all-round with a rear-swing axle, the model being pitched to customers as a car with the sporting looks and prowess of the two-seater Spitfire, but with the practicality for drivers with a young family. The construction of the car itself was a mixture of steel and fibreglass, the bonnet, rear tub, windscreen surround and door skins, all utilising Sharps Commercials' vast knowledge in glass fibre moulding, while the styling of the car's body, though following the design ethos of Triumph's longtime car stylist Giovanni Michelotti, was in fact penned by Lorry Bond himself. Bond's design blended his own more sleek-looking nose and tail to herald underpinnings to create a machine which followed the popular looks of contemporary Italian sports cars, the overall culmination of the Equipe design process being a new body fitted atop a Vitesse chassis and drivetrain with a Spitfire engine, making for an exceptionally easy car to assemble when compared to more dedicated sports models from rival firms. Entering sales in 1963, the Bond Equipe was distributed through Triumph standard showrooms at a cost of £822, or £12,124 in 2025, placing it further down the price list against the likes of the Spitfire, the MGB and the Austin Healey Sprite. Although the Equipe weighed 50 kilograms more than the Spitfire, its 63 horsepower engine still boasted a 0-60 time of 17.6 seconds and a top speed of 90 miles an hour, which, for the time, were exceptional numbers when considering the archaic nature of low-end power plants for small sports cars, and was only 1 second slower than the lighter Spitfire. The model, for its low cost, boasted many sophisticated design features as inherited from the Vitesse, such as the aforementioned all-wheel independent suspension, front disc brakes, and rack and pinion steering. The first generation Equipe was a GT 2+2 and was relatively well received by the motoring press at the time, complementing the fact that its styling appeared to mimic the likes of the Aston Martin DB4 at the front and the finned Chevrolet Corvette C1 at the rear. However, reviewers noted that, anywhere other than on smooth roads, the car was incredibly rough to ride in, while at the same time the model didn't feature a functioning boot lid, with the rear luggage space only accessible via the car's interior, an omission likely made due to engineering cost constraints. The internal facets of the Equipe were solely taken from the Triumph parts bin, including a Vitesse dashboard and Spitfire instrumentation, bucket seats and steering wheel, the car capable of carrying 4 passengers, though rear occupants could only be limited to small children, as the low roofline precluded comfortable travel for anyone over 4 feet in height. The original Equipe GT 2x2 would run in production from April 1963 to October 1964, with around 451 units built, this generation of the model being brought to a swift end following the launch of the straight-six powered Triumph 2000 in late 1963, providing Bond with the inspiration to take the Equipe and thoroughly revise it to iron out many of the original GT shortcomings. The tail was raised 3 inches in order to gain additional headroom and facilitate the addition of a boot lid, while a new nose was borrowed from the Triumph 2000 to create a 4 headlamp cluster and an almost snout-like nose, while from early 1967, the Spitfire's new 1.3-litre engine was added to the range, with 2,505 GT4S units constructed between September 1964 and August 1970. Emboldened by the success of both Equipe models, Bond decided that they would expand the range further by way of a convertible model dubbed the Equipe 2 Litre, which, instead of being fully styled by Laurie Bond, was penned by Trevor Fiore, fresh from the critical acclaim of his TVR Trident concept car that was displayed at the 1965 Geneva Motor Show. Fiore was contracted for the initial design of the Bond Equipe sister model, although in the end his role largely extended only to tidying up the exterior design, while a large portion of the development had been conducted in-house, the car once again picking up various aspects of the Vitesse by way of the same floor plan and scuttle. This time, though, it was modified to incorporate a more horizontally raked windscreen, the major difference between the new and old Equipe models being the adoption of custom-pressed door skins, which were attached to Triumph shells, allowing for the Michelotti swages to be dispensed with, and thus creating a car that appeared externally to have no resemblance to its predecessor. Launched in August 1967, and featuring a much more contemporary angular design, the 2-litre Equipe had the appearance of a much larger coupe, such as the Aston Martin DBS, the most important element of the car, aside from its superb styling, being the use of Triumph's compact 2-litre straight-six engine. The car was able to achieve a top speed of 100 miles an hour and a 0-60 time of 11.5 seconds, performance figures that outdid large swathes of the competition. While to truly bring home the car's comparative exclusivity against its other Equipe stablemates, the 2-litre was offered with optional overdrive, wire wheels, and a radio, all of which pushed the price of the machine up to £1,095, or £14,095 in 2025. The most desirable Equipe, though, was still yet to come, as in September 1968, the Bond Equipe 2-litre Mark II saloon and convertible were launched to replace the previous 2-litre after 591 units, the 1968 Equipe being launched in response to the upgraded platform of the latest Triumph Herald 1360. This formed the basis of the Vitesse Mark II, with the car incorporating the Vitesse's suspension upgrades as well as a flush folding hood, presenting a machine that had all the appearances of a far grander sports car than it actually was, entering sales at a cost of £1,096 or £13,535 in 2025. In February 1969, though, the Bond Cars Company was purchased wholesale by Reliant Motors of Tamworth, the manufacturer of the famous Reliant Robin three-wheelers, who had opted to acquire the company so as to gain access to the dealer network of Triumph and thereby allow for a more widespread distribution of its own models both nationally and internationally. The Reliant Company proposed bringing forward 2 new models to refresh the Bond product range, the famous Bond Bug, a sporty three-wheeler which was nearing completion at the time of Reliant's takeover of Bond, and would go on to become an icon of 1970s British motoring due to its curious wedge-shaped looks, and the Mark III Equipe. This car shared a passing resemblance to the upcoming Morris Marina Coupe, and, due to the impending discontinuation of the Herald range in 1971, would utilize the shortened version of the Triumph 2000 chassis, as well as its 2-litre straight-six engine, although it could be argued that the Herald's direct replacement, the Triumph Toledo, could have provided a more suitable platform, as it was of not too dissimilar dimensions to that of its predecessor. However, a secured future for the Equipe was rapidly swept away, as during the fallout following the formation of British Leyland, the company undertook widespread rationalisation in order to weather the fiscal storm, and it was therefore decided that there was no longer room for the Bond models alongside Triumph's own range in the showrooms, wiping away all justification for Reliant's purchase of Bond cars. The solution was, therefore, in the face of quality control issues affecting the Reliant-produced Bonds, together with a lack of impetus among the Reliant management to invest in a new chassis for the Mark III Equipe, to abandon the entire market sector. The only remnant of the Bond company to continue in production would be the notorious Bug, which, thanks to its widespread popularity, would remain on sale until 1974, and keep the moniker of Bond cars alive for another 4 years before this distinguished name in British motoring history disappeared forever. In the end, only 4,389 Equipes emerged from the Preston factory during its 7-year production life, and today these cars are incredibly rare to find on the roads of Britain and parts of Europe. Although thanks to its styling, obscurity, 30 mpg fuel consumption, and the use of a fiberglass body, these machines are sought-after classics. Today, the Equipe has garnered a strong and loyal following as a cheap but highly obscure alternative to more mainstream British sports cars like the Triumph Spitfire and the MGB, while also providing a modicum more practicality than its rivals, which makes it a popular little car, despite the fact that so few were made.